players gather to cast powerful spells, some of the oldest and most powerful in the history of Magic the Gathering. Animate Dead, Entomb, Reanimate, and many others. Battling head-to-head in brutal combat, they all have one thing in common: to uphold their legacy and the search for eternal glory.
The Eternal Glory podcast is brought to you by the minds behind Bosh and Roll on YouTube, Arabian University, and TheEpicsFirm.com. This episode is sponsored by Moxfield and financial advisor and certified financial planner Nicholas Robb.
Hello, and welcome to episode 150, of the Eternal Glory podcast, Legacies Positives. We've already recorded 30 minutes of introduction and banter for the week, available in our supporter-exclusive pre-show. Check out patreon.com/eternalglory to gain access, or join as a YouTube member for the same content on YouTube instead. As always, I'm Phil Gallagher, aka Thraben U.
I'm Brian Coval, aka Bosh and Roll.
And I'm Brian Cook of The Epic Storm.
Shout out to our new or returning patrons and YouTube members. We've got Hopeful CD, Richard G, and Moxz. Welcome or welcome back. And those people, along with our other paid members, will enjoy our pre-show, where our main episode today is about positive. Our pre-show was negative as hell. We got a lot off our chests. If you like that sort of content, go do that. Maybe it's like a nice little chocolate vanilla swirl. Got that pre-show into the positives of the main show. Go enjoy that.
Yeah, plus the Epic Sperm is in there, so go check that out.
Yes, Bryant Cook of the Epic Sperm made a return.
To win in Magic, adjust your strategy as the game changes. The same is true of investments. Nicholas Robb, financial advisor and certified financial planner, can help you create a game plan for your financial goals. Call 314-968-3783 or email nicholas.ropp@edwardjones.com. That's nicholas.raupp@edwardjones.com to get started today. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
And if you're interested to advertising to 10,000 plus Eternal gamers every episode, reach out to us. We're always accepting new sponsors.
Today's topic, positivity. There's a lot to complain about, a lot to be upset about. The world is crazy in a lot of ways. Magic is weird in a lot of ways. Magic is very different than it was 10 years ago, and different more than 10 years before that. And, of course, we'll just say the bad thing now. Oops All Spells remains kind of a boring blight on our format. We have some data provided by Crucible of Worlds. 8.1% of the metagame, representing a 14.8% of top 8 penetration. That's almost double kicking its coverage. It is, it's out there. It is one of the most played decks, and it is the most winning deck. And it is awful to behold and to play against. And, we don't want to spend an episode on that. So we're gonna talk about things we do like instead, while still acknowledging, briefly, the boogie person.
Well, clarifying, we don't want to spend an episode on it yet. Next month we'll circle back when the BNR window approaches.
Right, and so I'll get this, I'll clear it out now, and then we can focus on positivity. In the last couple of ban cycles, I was saying hit Undercity Informer, then they have to Balustrade Spy, or they have to Beseech or Belcher as their second thing. Consigned to Memory becomes a better choke point for their deck. Nerf them without killing them. Respectfully, I'm off it. Kill it. Balustrade Spy, Undercity Informer, get them both. Put them on the ban list. That's how I feel at this point.
Co-signed.
All right, more on that later. But let's talk about some good things. So each one of us assembled 3 different things that we wanted to talk about that we like, either about current Legacy or current Magic. And I guess I'll start. I am really liking current white creature design in Magic. I think Voice of Victory and Clarion Conqueror and other cards like them are really giving white decks new design space to explore in Legacy. And it has been a lot of fun trying to tune these energy decks, tune these hate bear decks, try to play Dead Guy Ale in 2025. I have found that really enjoyable.
Hell yeah. And I want to piggyback on that a little bit with creature design in general, just kind of giving the more linear colors a little more texture. And as you were listing all those white cards you like, I was thinking about all the red cards I like in Vintage Cube. And some of this applies to other decks. Obviously, Red Stompy is a top deck in Legacy, but I have been surprised but delighted to find that one of my favorite archetypes to be in Vintage Cube is red 3-drop value deck, where you have things like Lelia, the Blade Reforged, Gut, True Soul Zealot, Broadside Bombardiers, and just these red cards that every turn they're in play, you get a little more out of them. And it's not Goblin Guide, it's not Fire Blast, that's not the identity of red in the Vintage Cube. It's 3-drop Snowball Advantage with Headliner Scarlet at the top from Ravnica Clue Edition. Just these cards that are just really delightful to play with. And I know that's not exactly the point you were making, but I want to, it's adjacent, and I want to shout it out where I see it, and I like it.
I would like to make a quick point here. So when you look at, these new white cards or the red cards that Brian mentioned, I think these cards owe Commander a thank you, because I think a big part of it is in Commander, players have 40 life. White Weenie and Burn aren't really viable strategies. And the commander-focused nature of Magic at this point requires a different way to build cards or design cards, because White Weenie and, Glorious Anthem type effects don't really get the job done. So you need creatures that are more interactive or create value. And I do think that's trickled down into formats like Legacy, making more playable cards. So I think Commander's influence on the game has been a positive in this aspect.
So, thinking about the supplementary products for a second and, the powerful summer releases, the initiative was kind of the only way to play, a white aggressive strategy in Legacy for a long time. And now we've kind of come full circle to where playing an initiative creature in Legacy is kind of embarrassing. It's just way too easy for the blue decks to take the initiative. They've got flash creatures, they've got evasive creatures, they might have creatures bigger than your initiative creatures now. And so having other ways that you can build viable white creature decks is great. And Voice of Victory, I think, specifically exists in a very fair design space. It clocks decently, but it gets blocked by just about anything. It's really only absurd if you have synergies with the tokens. It comes down slower than Vexing Bauble. It's easier to interact with than Vexing Bauble. I have really enjoyed the Voice of Victory play patterns.
I have not, from the other side of the table, and I mean that positively. I don't mean this sucks and I wish it wasn't here. I mean I am the person Voice of Victory is supposed to be offending, and I am not excited when I see it come down. But at the same time, like Phil said, I have a turn cycle to plow that thing usually, or if I find a sweeper, catch it in a Pernicious Deed or a Wrath of the Skies. No harm, no foul. But I don't get to plow mid-combat or Bowmaster for that double block. It is pressure in the right places at the right cost. Shout out to Voice of Victory.
Yeah, knowing that you're not going to be ambushed by Endurance and or Orcish Bowmasters mid-combat is a really big deal when you're playing a bunch of kind of crappy white creatures.
Yeah, for sure. And Bryant mentioned EDH, CEDH. Both of these cards you mentioned, slam dunks for that format. Voice of Victory, CEDH decks, or constantly looking for ways to silence the table, because that's the best way to beat 3 people, is if none of them are allowed to cast spells. And Grand Abolisher, format staple, silence, format staple. Voice of Victory is a Grand Abolisher that also curves into Tymna and lets you hit all 3 opponents on the turn you play Tymna to draw 3 cards. Just really gnarly play patterns in mid-range hell. But another silence helps break open the mid-range hell and let someone try to win if no one can cast spells. And then Clarion Conqueror, just everyone loves a Null Rod, a Collector Roof, and that one does so much more. Bryant is shaking his head.
Respectfully disagree.
It's weird that your daughter's nickname around the house is Collector Roof. Thalia Karn, the Great Creator, Cook, the Collector Roof, and how you feel that strongly about all that.
Yeah, I mean, Clarion Conqueror, I think fortunately, I haven't run into it yet, but the game doesn't need more Collector Roof effects. That's just my own opinion. But, I'm open to being wrong.
I had a really cool game the other day. I was playing Vintage Oath, and I was paired against White Initiative. And there's now such a density of 2 and 3 mana things they can do that you really have to think about it and deduce, if they had this one, would they have played it by now? How bad is this one actually? And I set up a line with show and tell where I was like, I'm going to show and tell. I'll put in Atraxa. I could still follow up with Time Walk afterwards and then use all my resources to get away. Like the Time Walk could still get through Anointed Peacekeeper. I don't care about Archon of Emeria, or nope, Archon of Emeria is the one that blew me out. I named like 5 different white donkeys that could come in off my show and tell that I was like, okay, I can navigate all these. And then they put an Archon of Emeria and I couldn't Time Walk and then I just died. And it's just like, it's fun to have to navigate all that. And it's not quite so prescriptive. And in the deck building place, like, do you play Clarion Conqueror? Do you max out on Archon of Emeria? Do you max out on both? Is Thalia part of this game? Or are we going straight to 3? Like, you don't have enough slots for every card you could play anymore.
And since it shuts off your own artifacts, there's a lot of deck building implications there. It's really weird. I'm still kind of mentally jumping through those hoops. I conceptually like trying to do some sort of like Phyrexian Dreadnought thing with it, where you don't care about having the artifact mana so much. You just play a giant pile of hate bears, and maybe accidentally you make a 12/12 at some point.
Yeah, Harain, the Twitch streamer Harain, who Phil and I, we got dinner with at MagicCon Chicago. He's a member of the bosh and roll community as well. He has been developing Torpor Orb Dreadnought Stompy for the last few months, and the deck is actually quite good. If you haven't seen that, maybe you could be inspired by it, but Ancient Tomb out a Torpor Orb on turn 1, then you're Null Drifting or Dreadnoughting or whatever the hell after that. The deck gets to play stock up. Like, that deck is very cool. And it has Clarion Conqueror in the sideboard, obviously. Bryant, what's up with you? Let's hear something fun.
So my first positive thing would be my last 2 Epic Storm leagues, granted a month apart, were both 5-0s. I tend to be a little negative on the podcast sometimes, and it's because I don't particularly enjoy the play patterns of the Oops All Spells format. That said, I did 5-0 in my last video beating Oops All Spells, but I had to mulligan to 4 for a ley line, and then played a complete non-game, and then won on the game on turn 7, because that's what's required in order to beat Oops All Spells. But, I saw this week in just like browsing Reddit, I was like, oh, the Epic Storm is bad. It's 0.5% on Goldfish these days. And I was like, they're not necessarily wrong. Like, I think saying, oh, like decks with a lower metagame percentage do tend to be worse. But I also think it doesn't paint the whole picture. Like, I'm not allowed to play challenges anymore. Alex McKinley is getting married. Jordan is off getting a new job or whatever he's currently doing. And basically the team that plays the deck has all sort of gone away in the last year and a half. And because of that, the representation of the deck is lower, and it got me thinking, I'm willing to bet that a lot of the decks with lower percentages on Goldfish aren't as bad as they would appear to be. And there's more viable archetypes out there than the top of the metagame would show. Like, I understand that, Dimir Tempo is 12% and Oops All Spells is 14% or whatever, but there's competitive strategies that are lower on that totem pole if you're willing to look at page 2.
Yes, 2 points to that. This goes all the way back to like 2019, where Ad Nauseam Tendrils won a Grand Prix in the hands of Cyrus Cormangill. And it was a regular show up in big legacy tournaments online and in paper. And then Cyrus just started doing other stuff during the COVID lockdown. And Cliffy moved to, I think he plays poker now instead of Magic Online. And the top 2 pilots of the deck don't do it anymore. And a lot of them adopted Doomsday. Former Ant players adopted Doomsday when Theros Beyond Death came out in 2020 or late 2019, whenever that was. And the deck just disappeared. Is that because it's bad? Or did the 4 players who played it the best stop playing it for either life or other deck reasons? And that doesn't work for every deck, but we do talk about like JPA just showing up with Sneak and Show, time in, time out. Every format, every year, top 8ing the Legacy Showcase, no matter when it is, no matter what's going on in the meta with Sneak and Show. Maybe there's just masters who know stuff that you don't, and if they're doing something else, you don't see their deck for a while. And that won't work for like Dimir Tempo, because just, any grinder who picks up Legacy is going to look at that, kind of understand how it works, and then go play the Super Qualifier or whatever. They're not going to pick up the Epic Storm in the dark, and that will lead to lower meta percentage.
How about you, Brian? What are you feeling positive about these days?
So I know you guys got to do a whole episode about this topic without me last week, but I am just going to briefly touch on how awesome it is, the huge impact of standard legal cards in Legacy and Modern and Vintage right now. I really like when cards get balanced for one thing and make it to us. I don't like the injection of Modern, straight to Commander summer sets where they don't have to balance around anything normal and they just go straight to us and shake us up real hard. But just in the past 2 weeks, I've personally played with Stock Up, Rakshas's Bargain, Clarion Conqueror, Corey Steelcutter, Stormscale Scion, Ugin, Eye of the Storms, and Taval, the balance scale. Or not the balance scale, that's the commander one. The other Taval, the 6-mana Taval, 5-mana Taval, 5-mana 6/6, the one that gives all your spells Delve. Like, these are all cards that I've gotten to play with. The Taval, by the way, Arbiter of Virtue, is that it?
Yes.
Okay, Taval, Arbiter of Virtue. I won't say that Dexon has changed the metagame, but I will say I resolved Taval and then spent 1 actual mana on a Green Sun Zenith for Atraxa on the same turn.
Oh, what the fuck, Brian? That's not allowed.
Yeah, no, it is allowed when all your spells have Delve. That's what I'm talking about right now. Just these cool cards that inspire you to try stuff. And looking at a card like Corey Steelcutter, it's not like, wow, how do I make this work? You obviously just put it in a deck with fucking spells. Like, no shit. We already had the blueprint for Monastery Mentor, a card that is restricted in Vintage. Got a little too clunky at 3 mana. Now it costs 2 mana and is harder to kill because it's an artifact. Like, wait, the blueprint's not rocket science, but it is cool that that card immediately impacted Standard, Modern, Legacy, and Vintage. And it might be impacted Pioneer too. I have no idea what's going on in Pioneer because Wizards doesn't support that format anymore. But it, like, Stock Up hit Eternal formats like a truck. Corey Steelcutter hit Eternal formats like a truck. And then there's a bunch of other fringe playables or archetype Rockstars. Rakshas's Bargain, of course, exactly up my alley. And every time I put in a deck, I'm happy, with or without Beanstalks.
I am enjoying brewing with Corey Steelcutter. I've been trying to figure out, like, is it reasonable to play that in Legacy in non-blue decks? Like, I tried it out in essentially a Mardu energy deck, and I was like, okay, how good is this going to be if you don't just have a pile of Brainstorms and Ponders or Baubles to just repeatedly trigger it? And the answer is, it was still respectable. It wasn't crazy good or anything, but it still will sometimes just absolutely solo a game on accident.
Yeah, you would have to either simulate the experience of cantrips with, like, the bottle cards, the Ren's Resolves, or something like Amtraptor will get you into the Steelcutter right away. I wouldn't want to go into something like the One Ring to keep cards flowing, because then you could win with anything if you've resolved a One Ring. But yeah, the idea of just playing it fair and square without leaning on trusty old Ponder to make everything work is sweet.
It was Staff of the Storyteller, Brian.
Oh yeah. Hook it to my veins.
And if you're interested in these decks that we are playing, everything we ever talk about on the podcast will be available up on our personal Moxfields. Moxfield's great. I know that I made a folder today that has 620 different decks in it from previous older Legacy formats as I consolidated a bunch of my stuff. I just have a record of everything that I've done for the last couple of years, and I love it.
Same. I'm also in the probably 700 or 800 decks on Moxfield level myself, and I mentioned in the Patreon exclusive pre-show that I am pre-recorded 22 videos out right now because I have some travel coming up. All 22 of those are posted in my Moxfield. They're public. You don't have to wait for the video to come out to. It is both a preview of content to come, and you could have those lists now. Well, you don't have to wait 3 weeks for them. Moxfield rules.
All right, let's take a tiny break here, and then let's just kind of continue with some more positivity. All right, welcome back. So I've got another one here. Now, control is maybe not fully thriving in current Legacy. We're about 17% control in the format, according to MTG Top 8. But it is now no longer just absolutely embarrassing to register a control deck, and I really like that.
I had a funny YouTube comment about this week. I complained about Oops All Spells in a video, and somebody's like, yeah, but blue is 35% of the format. I'm like, blue is not a single deck. Blue is an archetype. Like, if you wanted to argue archetype versus archetype percentages, you could do that. But arguing that Oops All Spells is roughly half of the entire archetype of blue, you're not getting your point across here, and it's not the argument that you should be making. And they just responded back with like some non sequitur about how I don't know what I'm talking about. And, I think that it's good if blue is increasing in the format because it means that we're going to get back to a more fair metagame instead of just this game state where a lot of games are decided based on your opening hand. So I like seeing control come back. In fact, the video I recorded today, I faced 4 dedicated control decks in it.
Yeah, we are out here, like, as the representative of the control delegation. We're out here trying stuff, and there is a lot to try. I have been extremely happy with beanstalks of various color spreads, non-beanstalks. I played a Jeskai control list the other day, built around Stock Up and Corey Steelcutter. Didn't even have Ponder in it. It's just leaning really hard on these new card advantage engines instead of the traditional ones. Flage, the Fire's Fury, was in that deck as well. Is that what Flage's title is? Fire's Fury? It's something Fury. I don't know. But yeah, it was Flage, Corey Steelcutter, and Stock Up were kind of the core pieces. It wasn't Teferi, Narset, Ponder, 4th Aerlingus. We were doing something totally different, and it was awesome.
Yes, Flage, Titan of Fire's Fury.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah, I saw some neat tech the other day out of, I think it was a Beans deck. I saw someone running a couple of extirpates in their sideboard, which is like a surgical extraction, but it has split second. So you don't get to use your memories journey to stop them from extracting the thing that they want to extract.
That said, it does come at the cost of 1 black mana. You cannot use Phyrexian Life.
Yep. Yeah, Extirpate was, I believe, the first surgical extraction, and we played that for years as a sideboard option in Legacy. The space between, I believe, Planar Chaos is where Future Sight, or where it's definitely Time Sorrow Block. I think it's Planar Chaos is where Extirpate comes from, but from that space until New Phyrexia, Extirpate was a sideboard staple. And I have a funny Extirpate story since we're talking about it. I had a game in Modern when Krark Clan Ironworks was legal, and I had Krark Clan Ironworks could go off over top of surgical extraction or traditional graveyard hate. So somebody brought in Extirpate instead, and they went to Extirpate one of my combo pieces, but Krark Clan Ironworks is a mana ability and doesn't care about split second, and I was just able to sacrifice something else, trigger my Grab Caller, and pick up the card they were trying to Extirpate. And I've never seen anyone want to march into the sea more than that person in that moment. Just wanted to get that story out there.
That's pretty funny.
That's a good one.
I did see Extirpate this week out of an Ad Nauseam Tendrils list that went 5-0, and then I shared it to the Discord, and people were discussing on if it's viable because you need a turn. And I think that's the big question mark with the card is, am I allowed to have a turn of magic? Like, with a control deck, you're able to play Force of Will or Force of Negation, try to buy some time. But if you're a non-blue deck, how likely is it that you're going to be able to hold open 1 black mana for the critical turn? I like that it gets past Pact of Negation, but it doesn't get past Thoughtseizer Unmask.
Right. This is, I think, a deck building and theory lesson for sideboarding for the sideboard game, because you're not bringing in cards for their main deck. You are bringing in cards for their sideboard plan because they also get an opportunity to sideboard. And if a lot of control decks, a lot of basically all matches of Magic, all decks slow down after sideboard. They become more reactive. They cut their most sendy pieces to get more relevant stressors for the matchup they're in. And if a deck like Oops All Spells pivots, if they pivot, it doesn't matter if you have Extirpate or Surgical, because it's not about the graveyard anymore. But if they bring in some extra discard or something like Lotleth Giant, a card that I've seen in lists that I still don't understand. Like if they do something like that, or if they mulligan in a way that they know this is a blue deck, I can't just send it. So they go to 5 to find a Thoughtseize, and that buys you 2 or 3 turns to then draw your extirpate and have a black to cast it. Like that is a play pattern that holds up better. I think I've told the story on the pod before. Sorry to everyone who's heard it before, but in the top 4 of the Star City 10K that I won a couple years ago with Cephalid Breakfast, I was playing against Tony Scapone, and we both knew each other's lists, and I knew that a combo player would not send it into a blue player unprotected. He was on Black Saga Storm, I was on Cephalid Breakfast. But he knew that I knew that. And I knew he knew I knew that. So we were on this crazy level system where I'm just looking at an opening hand that doesn't have Forest Blue card in it. And I'm like, he might send into this if he's on the correct level. And we really and then we talked about it after the match where we were both having that same thought process, which is, just really interesting of matchup awareness and sideboard awareness. And am I going to shove here? What's the cost?
So the second thing that I would like to be positive about is that I have played the Epic Storm since 2006, which I think is honestly just pretty cool. We're coming up on 20 years. In fact, Thursday will be 10 years of the epicstorm.com, by the way. Pretty excited about that.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, pretty sweet, right? And when I tell people that, they're like, you've played the same deck for almost 20 years. It's like, sort of. It's Ship of Thesis, right? Like, Diminishing Returns became Echo of Aeons. Orm's Chant became Veil of Summer. Slight upgrades like that. And Gemstone Mine became Mox Opal, where I didn't have to sacrifice my mana base to play more colors. And to compare this to a deck that more people play, back when I was younger, I played Rug Threshold with Nimble Mongoose and Werebear, Fledgling Dragon, and, I played main deck Flametongue Kavu as a hedge for the mirror because I traded with 2 Werebears. That's how long I've been playing Magic. Actually, even before that. But Rug Threshold eventually became Delver. And it all goes back. So, like, your current Izzet Delver is the same cousin as Rug Threshold. And that's sort of what the Epic Storm is. So when I see recency bias posts on Reddit, I get a little bummed out sometimes because they're like, Legacy's a rotating format. I don't think that's true. All of these Delver decks on the top of MTG Goldfish are just Rug Thresholds from 20 years ago. And I don't think a few printings each year necessarily changes that. And it bums me out sometimes because things were always going to be changed. Like, I remember being so bummed when they printed Tarmogoyf because I loved Werebear. And I'm not even saying that to be funny. I genuinely loved Werebear. I still have a Japanese foil set that I keep in a binder. And I look at it every once in a while and I think about my days of playing Flametongue Kavu. And yeah, things get power crept, but that was always going to happen. Maybe it happens at a slightly more advanced rate these days because there's more sets. But I do think that things aren't changing at such a rate that people need to be up in arms all the time. Like, I think Legacy is still pretty great, and your deck from 10 years ago is probably better than you think, and people just get so butthurt about that, but they don't play enough games. I think that's what a lot of it is. They spend too much time complaining behind a keyboard and not actually playing Magic.
As always, the cure for Magic discourse is playing Magic. If you don't think you like Magic because you just talk about Magic all the time, play it. And yeah, what Bryant said about, having played the air quotes same deck, even though the engines and mana have both changed, but it is, it got there slowly. And if you haven't touched Magic in 10 years and you come back, it's going to look very different. I'm just, looking at the front page of Goldfish right now, and Dimir Tempo, you would recognize that, at least the core pieces of that, even if the threats are very different. Murktide Regent, Tamiyo, what the fuck is a Planeswalker with ninjutsu? What are we talking about here? But the nuts and bolts of that are the same. Izzet Delver, literally the deck that has been around the whole time. Like Red Stompy, people were powering stuff with Ancient Tomb out 10, 15 years ago. Reanimator, we all know that one. It might have been banned last time you were playing. Welcome back. Like, the guts are here, and the fringe might look different, but the core of the thing is still the legacy cards that we have always been drawn to. And maybe you have to learn a little bit to get caught up, but that's true of anything. If you don't use it, you'll lose it. So get out there and use it, and you will find that you didn't actually lose it.
One of the things that I believe is that SCG sold the community a lie, and Legacy has paid for it for some time. The buy a deck and play it forever was said on stream so many times that people believed it. And it's true. I mean, I've played a deck for 20 years, but I've had to change my cards constantly over that time period. Yeah, it's the same Storm deck. Maybe the cards aren't all the same, but it's had the same vibe for 20 plus years. I'll say that. But I've had to upgrade cards. I've had to innovate. I've had to make changes. It's not buy a 75 and get to play that 75 cards forever. And I think that's what people expect, but that was never realistic. And if you believed the buy a deck and play it forever thing, I feel like that's almost on you for buying a bridge, right? Like, that's sort of how I feel. It's like you believed a lie that was told to you to make a sale. And that's not Legacy's fault at this point.
I think that was very close to true when it was originally said, though. Like, in that time frame, 1 or 2 cards from each set were Legacy viable. Like, Legacy did move so much more slowly back then. And I think that if you bought a Legacy deck in, 2013, over the course of 5 years, you would have bought a handful of cards. Whereas if 5 years ago you bought Death and Taxes, you have now bought an entirely different deck and replaced nearly every card that was in the deck.
Yeah, Modern Horizons, the first one came out in the summer of 2019. And that's when we really started getting catapulted through the world of your deck you bought 6 months ago might not be even close to playable anymore in Modern or Legacy. Modern especially, bigger victim than Legacy here. But even like ignoring that, having Legacy cards, if you did buy Legacy staples in 2010 to 2014, you have still come out ahead, even if you have to supplement them with different Modern Horizons cards now. If you bought Fetchlands and Underground Seas in 2010, you're still playing them. And I have this hoard of cards. I keep Eternal Playables in their own binders, separate from the rest of my Magic collection. And my definition of Eternal Playable is, have I literally ever registered it or seen anyone register it in a deck from Modern or backwards, Modern, Legacy, Vintage? There's some weird stuff in there. There's like Coral Helm Commanders, still a playset of those in my binder. Haven't rotated those out. And once in a while, something changes. Something gets printed or the meta shifts where a card that you look at in your Legacy Playables binder and you're like, what am I doing with this? Can I get rid of this? Becomes real again. And my most recent story is Flash. I've had a playset of Flash in that binder since the Flash Hulk Grand Prix in 2009 or 2010, whenever that was. 2008, maybe? I think it was 08. Since 2008, that card has not been legal or playable anywhere, but then they printed Atraxa, and now Flash is a big part of the Vintage metagame. And, new life to old cards if you hold on to them long enough.
So I decided to take a quick look at Izzet Delver, since that's the example we've been using. If you look at a stock deck list, 44 of the cards have been around for over plus a decade. Your Ponders, Days, Wasteland, all that stuff. Really, the thing that's changed is the creature package. Dragon's Rage Channeler, Murktide Regent, Brazen Borrower, Quarry Steel Cutter, those sort of things. But the bones of the deck, pretty much the same since 2008, or whenever Ponder was printed. So I don't think that deck has actually changed all that much. Yeah, I get Delver Secrets is in and out sometimes. You could play a Tameo Inquisitive Student, but I really don't feel like at least Delver is a deck that's changed all that much if you're someone that bought into that archetype. Plus, with a lot of the Delver shells, I get that like swapping Volcanic Island for Underground Sea isn't a free thing to do, but a lot of the color splashes outside of duels are not that different. Maybe I'm wrong to say that, but I feel like they're mostly the same deck with different removal packages and a different creature here or there.
Yeah, I'm doing some just quick mental math here. On Goldfish, they have the tabletop price of Izzet Delver listed at $3,594, which is an enormous amount of money if you're starting from nothing. Welcome to a Legacy. The reserve list sucks. Encourage proxies at your local store, etc. If you have your set of Volcanic Islands, that's $2,800 of those dollars. And it looks like it's about $320 to update any card that's been printed since 2019. Like if you played Izzet Delver or any version of Delver, a Volcanic Island Delver deck, Teamer Delver, whatever, in 2010, you're about $300 away from of tier 1 legacy deck right now, which is less than 10% of the total cost of this deck.
Yeah, so that's sort of my point. Like you just have to upgrade and innovate a little bit, and then like I don't think it's unreasonable for people to have to buy new cards every 5+ years. That's sort of my point here. Maybe that's going to upset some people, but I think that's just like the nature of the game. And I remember playing and watching SCG coverage between 2010 and 2014, and the Twitch comments and even like some of the commentary sometimes was how stagnant the format was. Stoneforge Mystic Mirrors with Riptide Laboratory and Vendalion Click. I mean, that sounds really fun right now, but watching the coverage, they were just like, oh, this again? Click Mirrors, who's going to draw the Riptide Lab first? And like, they were so negative about it. Well, it sounds really sweet right now. They were just like, nothing changes. It's just this every week. Who gets to equip Batterskull first?
Yeah, we never know what we have until it's in the rear view. That's just, there's a song about that. And that's how life works. The grass is not greener, and enjoy what you have while you have it. I'll take that into my second thing that I enjoy, which I love seeing the healthy parts of Legacy's metagame evolve right now. And what I mean by the healthy parts of the metagame is if we pretend Oops All Spells doesn't exist, we just take our coin flip when we play against it, 1 out of every 5 matches, every league you queue into on Magic Online, you just flip a coin for one and have no fun. But the other 4 are pretty great. The metagame is moving, and we're seeing different technology show up week in, week out, day in, day out. A couple pod episodes ago, we were all really worried about Omnishow, a deck that was starting to rise to prominence with stock up, and then Mysterized Village was printed right when Omnishow was really cooking, and we're like, we need to plan for this. And guess what? The metagame did. Omnishow is not near the top of the metagame anymore. It's barely on the front page of Goldfish. It's actually behind Sneak and Show, of all things. And that's because people adjusted to it. They saw what was happening, and the metagame shifted. And seeing colors and configurations of decks change, like I mentioned earlier, I've been enjoying 3, 4, and 5 color Beanstalk decks. Like, is it a week where I want Leyline Binding? Is it a week where Leyline Binding needs to cost 1, or can it cost 2? You can play that in only 4 colors and spend 2 mana on it. That's fine too. Or is just Bug where I want to be? The blue Tempo Shell, and we know people are going to roll their eyes on that. Wasteland Brainstorm. Yeah, that is a core pillar of Legacy. But Dimir, Izzet, Temur, and Grixis are all viable right now. And all have moments where it makes sense to be one over the other. What questions are going to be asked of you, and what solutions do these different colors or better mana offer you to fight those questions that you think you're going to be asked? I think that's awesome. And then widespread adoption of cards like Disruptor Flute. Ancient Tomb gamers knew about this immediately, but I see 2 or 3 of these in almost every sideboard now, which maybe that is indicative of something unhealthy, or maybe something just as wide open as a full Pithing Needle and half a Meddling Mage is something that decks want access to. Just a nice broad answer that you could spend 2 mana to have.
Yeah, I will say, like, just thinking about my deck techs from the last 2 months, there's like a week-long period where I was like, okay, I'm running a playset of anti-show and tell tech this week, and then that disappears off the face of the earth, and then my sideboard building adjusts appropriately. There has been real metagame movement, and if you are tuned into that, you do have a chance to get pretty big advantages in current Legacy. All right, I'm gonna get touchy-feely for a second here. I recently had some really positive interactions with a chunk of the Magic community from Brazil. I had a fan from Brazil reach out who let me know that a pretty well-known Brazilian Magic player who was regularly watching my content passed away, and sent me some information about like the obituary and stuff. And I just kind of said some kind words about them and sent some positive love to Brazil. And I got so many messages from Brazilian people thanking me for doing that, including the guy's wife, who sent me a very sweet message afterwards. And I think that was just a very nice reminder that Magic is a global game, and it's not just about, the things that you experience as, say, an American person who is playing in American events all the time. There's people all around the world playing this game, and it's great.
Yeah, shout out to everyone around the world. And Brazil shows up. Anytime you mention Brazil anywhere, the Brazilians come out. Like they are a people who like a shout out. So shout out to Brazil. I do love you guys down there. I had a opportunity. A Brazilian TO reached out to me like a year and a half ago, trying to get me sponsored to come down to a legacy event in Brazil. And I was really excited to do that. But unfortunately, the funding fell through right at the very end. But I'm hoping to see you all one day. But yeah, the worldwide nature of this, I have had coaching sessions talking to someone in Russia recently who is like bouncing off multiple VPNs to be able to speak to someone live in America, which neither of our governments are very happy about. But Magic is being played over there. Legacy is being played. I met a couple of dudes from Peru at Eternal Weekend 2 years ago who said that they practice English by listening to my videos, which is great. I taught them the phrase, "my life is shit," apparently. So like that important like cultural glimpses, like you're not going to hear "my life is shit" in an English textbook or it's not on Duolingo. You're not going to get that one. But yeah, the people worldwide who tune in and we get to interact with each other. It's awesome.
I will say this. It always disappoints me once every 6 months whenever I see the Twitter or X discourse of, oh, we should only be allowing English cards in tournaments. It just frustrates me so much because Magic is a global game. And saying that English is the only thing that matters is just so naive. And I think it's honestly just disrespectful to places like Japan, where some of the best players on the earth are in Japan, innovating, making all these crazy combo decks. But yet they're supposed to have to use English cards because you're unwilling to call a judge for an oracle or be a little bit more open-minded. It just baffles me.
I think as soon as the player rewards cryptic command, the textless cryptic command was conceptualized, any conversation about the language on cards was over. And secret layers, unreadable now. Like, even if you do speak the language, what the hell is going on some of those? A lot of them have the text on the back, like the ones that are a baseball card or a cereal box. You literally have to pull the sleeve or the card out of the sleeve and turn it over to get the text because the front is all art. I don't believe there is any conversation to be had anymore about what language cards should be in. They should be in the language of whoever wants to play Magic and can access the game through those cards.
So I guess one of the things that I feel positive about is an unpopular opinion. I like all of the sets each year. I know that they're coming out at a rapid pace and so many products are being pushed. I don't even mind Universes Beyond, but I like having new things to try all the time. I know that I play at a high pace because I'm a YouTube creator, but I like being able to try out different things roughly every month or so and be like, oh, hey, there's this new cool card. I'd like to play it today. Because I don't like playing the same thing over and over again without changes. It's just, it loses its appeal to me. And sometimes I do that because I like the deck a lot. But it definitely shows in the YouTube analytics where people are like, oh, you uploaded this deck 2 months ago and it hasn't changed. Like, just people don't watch that. And it's not all about driving clicks, but it's also tough to record that because, yeah, it's the same deck as 2 months ago with no changes. Like, having something new to play is fun and interesting. And realistically, we all do this because we want to have fun or learn something new. And you're more likely to do that with new cards. Like, if this was a non-expanding game, or if you want to play a time capsule format, those get solved so quickly, and there's a reason why the player bases of those time capsule formats don't grow. Because we all want change and we all want something fun to do. And I like that the new sets provide that.
Yeah, I like that Magic the Gathering provides the total framework where if somebody does want to play pre-modern with the same locked set of cards for the rest of time, they can. And if somebody wants to play with Final Fantasy versus SpongeBob, they could do that too. I wish there were slightly fewer products coming out, but there is also the option to opt out of a lot of them, like the secret layers that don't provide mechanically unique cards. You don't have to engage with commander decks. You don't have to buy every one. I am interested to see how it shakes out that Final Fantasy is going to be standard legal. Like, what does that mean when the standard legal booster pack costs $7? What does that do to standard? But at the same time, if people want to try Magic because they like Final Fantasy, then it makes more sense that they're able to play the smallest format and they don't have to buy a modern deck immediately to play with their Cloud and Tifa. So I don't know. I am mostly positive towards it. There's a few things I wish would chill, but I think the idea of it is fine.
So in the pre-show, I mentioned how I went to a kid's birthday party, and my wife's cousin plays Magic, but he's a local player who's more on the casual side. And he was telling me about how all of his friends started playing Magic because of Fallout. And then they got even more excited for Lord of the Rings and how they've been saving up money for this Final Fantasy set. And he's like, we pretty much just all buy the Commander decks and play those. Like, that's what their experience of Magic is. And I love that sets like Fallout and Lord of the Rings have brought in players from different games. Like, they were all just playing, video games or like D&D before, and now they're into Magic. So like, I do think the Twitter crowd doesn't always see that aspect of it because we're in the top 1 to 2% of enfranchised players.
It goes the other way too. I downloaded Final Fantasy VII for my Switch yesterday. I'm 2 hours into the game, and it's not a nostalgia run. I never had a PlayStation. I didn't play it in 1997. This is a new game to me, and it would not have even been on my mind if Final Fantasy wasn't coming out for Magic.
I don't know the exact statistic here, but I heard something along the lines of the Final Fantasy set is already the best-selling set of all time, and it's not even out yet because pre-orders are so high for it. I don't know exactly what the statistic is, but it is something of that magnitude. That set is going to go bananas. People want that, and I know many of our legacy listeners, like maybe even vehemently, are opposed to the Universes Beyond stuff, but that is bringing new people in. That is your next generation of Magic players right there.
In the flip side, though, of Universes Beyond going through Standard now and Standard costing more because they have to pay for the IP license, that also means the cards have to be balanced through the lens of Standard. And we're going to get more things like Stock Up and Corey Steelcutter and Thundertrap Trainer making it down to Legacy rather than Orcish Bowmasters and the One Ring, which were printed at a modern power level to begin with. I think it is better for Legacy if you don't like this stuff. I mean, if you're neutral to this stuff, if you're going to play with the cards you have and just make it work no matter what, it doesn't matter. But if you want a less impactful, if you want to see fewer Final Fantasy characters than Legacy, them coming through Standard is good news.
For what it's worth, I played Final Fantasy X to 99.9% completion. There was 2 monsters I couldn't beat in the battle arena, and then that was it. And the most broken character in that game is Waka, if you've ever played it. And when I saw the Waka card spoiled, I read it and I was like, oh, this is just like Trigon Predators combined with that Township land that puts counters on all your creatures. I was like, this card could have been broken, but instead it's Trigon Predator. I'm like, that's fine, I guess. It's Trigon Predator out of 4/4, but it's clear that they're not making everything as powerful as the video games, which I think is also a good thing. They are trying to balance this for Standard and to not just be completely overpowered. Also, Sephiroth is one of the biggest villains in the game. I read that card, I went, it's fine.
Yeah, they do have to capture the spirit of the thing in the actual Magic the Gathering world and make it make sense.
All right, hold up. Why is Waka overpowered in the video game? You got to run me through this real quick.
So his ultimate deals, like, you can loop the ultimate. That's the big thing. Is so like you just end up looping it and dealing like 99.999 times 999. Like, I don't remember. It's been a long time, but if you read like the guide, because I begged my parents for the guide. It was like a $30 guide, and the guide even tells you that Waka is the most broken character. But you have to build your team around Waka.
Okay. That's good enough. All right, Brian, I think you've got one last one to round us out, right?
Yeah, and it actually just piggybacks right off this one. My positivity thing is that Magic is thriving. And you, me, listener, whoever, the host of this podcast, may not like every single thing that's happening, but Magic is crushing it right now. And Phil just said Final Fantasy, best-selling set of all time, and it hasn't even come out yet. Lord of the Rings was the best-selling set of all time. Tarkir Dragonstorm crushed it. They're doing a great job in universe and out of universe. Marvel coming down the pipeline, that's going to be bonkers. It's just so exciting to see new people and being either spending time at the local game store or just letting the discover or browse feature on social media put people in front of you who you weren't already aware of. You can see the excitement. And you get to feel some excitement of your own as you see somebody excited about something you already knew about. And I'm just going to shout out an example. This is a group I follow on Blue Sky, Girl Pod. And I know, Phil, you know the Girl Pod, they do this thing where they just like showcase a single card. They just put it on like a fun little backdrop, a card of the day, a picture of a card, and a couple words about it. And the card of the days could be Ristic Study, like something that's just bonkers, but I'm just scrolling their feed right now. Card of the day, People of the Woods. That's just some green shitter from the dark. And just seeing younger and newer to the game people excited to find out a card exists. And haha, that's so funny. It has toughness equal to the number of forests you control. I imagine you could do something with that. Probably not, but it's fun that you're finding these old cards. And that's just one of many people on my feed who I see excited about something I was excited about 15 years ago. And rather than being a jaded old man and like, yeah, we know about that, I am excited for you. And I'm excited that you are on the way to become whatever, a Magic player down the road, whatever your final form is.